Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and today I've got the top 16 deck lists from a 108 person event that took place on the 14th of September in Italy, in Bologna. This was run by the Lorcana League Italia. And obviously 108 players is a nice big pool of data. We looked at a 241 person event not too long ago in France, where I only looked at the top 8 deck lists. I think it's because I combined it with another set of deck lists, so I didn't want the video to go too long. But really, I probably should have covered the top 16 of that, and I've got a video coming out in the next couple of days where we're going to break down a lot of the decks we've looked at all season and try and get some specific stats for what's the most represented, and of those decks, like how many are running counts of this, etc. So when I do that, I will take the top 16 deck lists into account from that 241 person event, because I think that sounds reasonable to draw from the top 16 of an event of that size. And yeah, this one 108 players, a big pool, so I'm drawing from the top 16. There's a couple of other events that have taken place recently that I want to get to soon. In Belgium, there was a 69 player event. Nice, which took place on the same day, and a little more local to me in London, the Brotherhood Games Lorcana Winner Case event, which had 50 players. Not all the deck lists are available for that one yet. I know Spessy was there and was streaming it, so I expect he'll cover those deck lists soon, and then we'll probably do those two events together, and I'll look at the top 8 for each. But yeah, at this point, we're less than a week away from the Disney Lorcana challenges in Birmingham and Las Vegas. Expect a couple of videos over the next couple of days, looking at data, looking at deck lists, and this is a big event, so we want to take a look. A quick shout out to the channel sponsor, Cardmarket. If you're looking for Lorcana singles at competitive rates, then check out Cardmarket. But let's jump in and take a look. So overall, a good spread of represented decks, but all the usual suspects, really. We've got 5 different ink combinations to look at. And in first place, we have some EA Tempo, just win the game. Now, we've seen these lists do quite well recently, but a different version of EA Tempo. A more toolbox variant, which is running a lot of 2s and 1s. I know it's a deck that Earlmeister has very much popularized and has seen some success, with the idea being that, yes, it may look a little less consistent, and the next deck we're going to look at is, if not the same, very similar to that build. That you just have all these different tech options. This particular version obviously built to hopefully be a lot more consistent. There's a lot more 3s in here. We've got 4 2s, 4 3s, and the rest are all 4s. So we've got that Clarabelle line in here to be a nice shift option. We're running 4 copies of the 1-drop Pegasus just to be a nice early aggro character if they can't answer the evasive, no shift target. We've got 3 Bonsai, great stats for a 2-cost. He is uninkable, which really hurts, but that stat line is just fantastic. We are running just 2 copies of the 2-cost Mother Gothel, who has a built-in Mother Knows Best effect. Not seeing the Floodborn here, which does surprise me, especially because we're not seeing here any copies of We Don't Talk About Bruno. We've got 2 copies of You're Welcome, but we are lacking overall in removal. But still, this 2-cost Mother Gothel can put in some work. 2 copies of Sir Hiss to be a nice evasive character that can, I don't know if there's no songs here he can sing, but again, similar to Pegasus, early game, if they don't have the evasive answer, he's just going to sit there and quest. 4 Ursa to snipe those songs. We've got 2 Kit Cloud Kicker for a bit of board control. 3 copies of Lyle Tiberius Rourke, who's one of my favourite cards in the game at the moment. Giving Reckless, and of course, whenever your opponent takes out one of your characters, well, whenever one of your characters is banished, while Lyle is on the board, your opponent loses a lore, which can be very, very frustrating. And yeah, Giving Reckless can be so good. Obviously, they can sing to get out of it, but if they're not running that sort of deck that has a lot of songs, like Ruby Amethyst doesn't run a lot, or if they just don't have them, then great. Or sometimes you're making them sing a song that they really wouldn't want to, but it's better than them having to challenge. As I mentioned, 2 copies of You're Welcome to be our removal for items, characters, and locations, and for our own characters if we just want to draw some cards. And then, yeah, for Amethyst, pretty traditional bounce package. 4 Snake, 4 Fox, we've got 4 Crab, 4 Goat, 4 Rabbit. We're playing 4 copies of that Elsa 5th Spirit with that nice rush, evasive, and exerting a character on play to give you some board control. Can answer things like Diablo unless they're at the Cove, so lovely, lovely. I'm running 3 copies of Ursa the Sea Witch Queen. Really benefits, obviously, we're already running the 2-drop, so we have a shift line here, so it makes a lot of sense to run this, because it can just shut some decks down, stopping players from exerting to sing songs, and whenever you quest, you exert an opposing character. And 4/7 is just like such a fantastic stat line. I'd prefer it to 5/7, because obviously there's some specific cards like World's Greatest Criminal Mind which specifically target 5 strength or more, and questing for 3, a fantastic addition. So yeah, EA Tempo, like a lot of the same tricks that we've been seeing throughout the season so far, but I think a lot more consistent. Like, it's nice to see these higher counts, and yeah, did very well for them. So so congratulations. And our other EA Tempo deck in top 8 is the 61 card version, and yeah, if not exactly the list that Elmice has been playing, it's very, very similar. So we're running a lot more 1s and 2s, a lot of tech options. We've got 2 copies of Cogsworth, which I'm not really a fan of, but we are running 2 Cricky, which can be. I do really like the Cricky. I think it's super flexible, giving the +3 to everything. Immediate on play. It's a good stat line. Yes, it does to Medusa, but hardly ever matters because even if they do have it, because normally you got benefit just for putting it down and giving challenger to things. Questing for 3. I'm a big fan of Cricky, and as long as you've got enough ink to go Cogsworth Cricky, then that could be quite nice. Just rush on Cogsworth and suddenly he's a 4-1, and of course tons of other characters here that are just going to become so much more formidable. We've got 2 Rafiki here for a bit of board control. I was kind of enjoying Rafiki in Ruby Amethyst. I've since moved away from it. I just don't think it's putting in enough specific work. So that's kind of also now my opinion for EA Tempo, but I understand, at times Rafiki can feel really nice, but I don't know, I think he's just a bit outclassed at the moment by other options. We've got that Clarabelle line, traditional bounce package with 3 crab, 2 copies of the 5th Spirit. We are running a 2-2 Gothel line, so we are playing the Floodborn, which can be a nice bit of removal. Again, if your opponent's got multiple characters, then it's hard to secure the one you want. But if they don't, if they're just putting down like a Tamatoa or a Tinkerbell or something like that, then she can be great removal. Again, no copies of, we don't talk about Bruno, which is a surprise, but 2 copies of You're Welcome that can fill that role of removal. 2 of the Ursula, we're playing 1 copy of that Emerald Chromacon, 3 cost on inkable item. During opponent's turns, whenever one of your characters is banished, you may return chosen character to their player's hand. This can be super annoying, and bear in mind it's banished through any means. It's not just in a challenge. It's if you challenge into them to trade, they still get to pop this and bounce one of your other characters. You put down, again, I've been playing some Tabletop Simulator recently, and I was putting down Big Sisu to wipe a couple of things, and then this Chromacon was bouncing it back to my hand, which in some ways, okay, now I can use it again, but it just never stuck. So yeah, this can be super annoying. 2 Queen's Castle, 1 Library. Yeah, again, I do see the benefit. I'm not someone that needs 2 lines or needs all 4s and 3s. I do see the benefit sometimes in 2s and 1-ofs, depending on how often you want to see them throughout a game, throughout a day of Lorcana, 2-game format or best of 3. For me, this is perhaps still a few too many 1s and 2s. But again, that bounce package is so powerful. If you get your rabbit going, then you draw so many cards, and again, the Clarabelle line can get you there as well. So maybe I'm just wrong, because this list is consistently doing well, so congratulations to them. Going on to 2nd place, we have Giovanni with some Amber Emerald Under the Sea. I've seen a lot of content creators, players, talking about this recently, and the most common word is underrated, and yeah, I think this feels so powerful. Revolving around this Under the Sea, 8 cost uninkable, sing together. 8, put all opposing characters with 2 strength or less at the bottom of their player's deck in any order. Running 3 Painting the Roses red that lowers the strength of 2 characters by 2, and we're running 3 copies of Keyed. I do think this should be 4. I think this can be such an important piece in this puzzle. But yeah, this Keyed lowering the strength of everything by 3. Just Keyed alone gets so much of the meta. You have to have 6 strength or more to not be put into range of Under the Sea by just Keeda. So yeah, there are a couple of things. Maui, Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, and there'll be a couple more that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But not a great deal, so this can just be absolutely game-ending. You think we just looked at those EA Tempo decks where so many of those characters are already 2 strength. The one there's a good amount that are 3 strength, so all you need is a Painting the Roses red, and then basically everything else falling into Keeda line. SteelSong is doing very well at the moment, and we'll look at some SteelSong lists after this. And again, so many of their characters either already fit into this, or just all it takes is a Painting the Roses red, and yeah, they've got maybe 1 or 2 characters that you actually need the Keeda, like the Cinderella Stouthearted. Going to have a bit of a harder time against the red-blue decks, because they do have more of those characters that have that higher strength are going to be harder to get into range. They've got obviously the Tamatoas, they've got Maleficents, and some of them are playing some other mid to high range spice. Plus, that deck tends to empty its hand quite consistently anyway, so even though this deck is taking advantage of a great discard package, while it could still be annoying and you could snipe the Flavisham or the Tamatoa at the right time with the You Have Forgotten Me or something like that, if they are able to just empty the hand quickly and then get to a point where their top deck should have such high equity anyway, because most of their cards are those mid to late range, so they can absolutely come back. And then if they've got their own Sisu, again, a lot of your characters already fit into their Sisu range, and their ice blocks, if they've got them on board, can do it for more of your characters, which is why I think it's so important that this deck is running 4 copies and we don't talk about Bruno. Even if we do get them to a point where we've made them discard their entire hand, or they've managed to take it down to 0 against like red-blue decks, we need to be able to know that when that Tamatoa comes down, when that Maleficent Monstrous Dragon comes down, we do have the immediate removal to like stop them getting back into the game. Against Ruby Amethyst, hardly any of them are playing Teeth. Your Diablo can get Brawl, but we are running 2 copies of Hidden Cove, so if you know how to pilot this deck against Ruby Amethyst, then you're not going to like leave your Diablo outside of the Cove against a potential Brawl. Obviously, there's like Medusa can do the job, but by that point, Diablo's drawn a few cards, and they're making you discard. Ruby Amethyst hates having its cards discarded at the best of times. If you snipe away the B preps early with Ursula, so yeah, I think this deck is super well situated at the moment. But yeah, that Diablo line, we've got the Shift option, running 4 copies of Muses, another card that synergizes really nicely with our cards that like Painted on Roses Red, which lowers strength and is a song, so then her ability procs, and that ward is nice. Muses is also really nice because even though this deck can have a good SteelSong matchup, if they're able to get like a Tink Swords play out of nowhere, they can completely wipe your board. But obviously this Muses having 4 willpower is super good, like just to help it stick onto the board long enough, and then, or you like if you've got an Ariel and a Muses or a couple of Muses, then you can sing Under the Sea at the right time. So yeah, I think this Muses is super good in this deck. Overall, I'm a big fan of it, and I expect it to do very well at the DLCs, and huge congratulations to Giovanni. And our other Amber Emerald Under the Sea deck is a 62 card version, which I don't know how I feel about. Yes, if you do get the early Diablo, and like some decks just can't answer that, and it just sits there and draws you all the cards. And again, Prince John can like I've seen so many players using Prince John and this deck, and they put that down. They have 2 Prince Johns down, and then you have forgotten me. They're drawing 4, and then yeah, as I said, this Diablo can obviously draw a lot of cards, but I don't know. I don't really see the need to go to the 62. But yeah, a lot of similarities to the deck we just looked at a moment ago. This version is playing 4 copies of Kida, which I do think is right. Again, I think it can be a really important piece of that puzzle so often. And we're also playing 2 copies of the new Ana, 3-cost uninkable 2/3 quest for 2. And on play, you pay 2 if you want to choose one of these abilities. Either each opponent chooses and discards a card, a chosen character gets +2 strength, or you can banish a chosen damaged character. Super flexible, and we've got the discard synergy here. So yeah, sure, and did very well for them. So congratulations. Going into top 4, we have Nicola with some Ruby Amethyst. This is a 61 card version, which I think is fine. And yeah, as I'm sure will be no surprise to people, I'm really liking Ruby Amethyst's chances at the moment. It is my prediction, again, as you'll see for the stream for Birmingham DLC. It is my official prediction to be the winner. And that's not necessarily because I think it's best deck in format, but I thinking of it in this respect, I do think it's going to be probably the 2nd most represented deck, maybe 3rd, but I still think it's going to be a big old piece of the pie. And I just think as the rounds progress and we start getting to rounds 6, 7, 8, I think the Ruby Sapphire decks are going to take out a lot of the EA Tempo decks, which I think is one of our worst matchups, and a lot of the Amber Emerald Under the Sea decks, which I think is another one of our worst matchups. SteelSong, I do think SteelSong is probably a bit favoured into Ruby Amethyst at the moment, and again, that's another deck that could be absolutely taken out by Ruby Sapphire. Not all of that, I imagine there'll be some representation, but I think when you get to the top tables, like the Ruby Sapphire decks are going to keep those at bay a little bit, and that's what's going to allow Ruby Amethyst to shine, because I still think Ruby Amethyst has a great matchup into Ruby Sapphire, personally. So it is my pick for the winning deck for DLC Birmingham, and let me know in comments what your prediction is for the what will win, and if someone else has put your prediction, then just hit the like button. And I'm not allowed to actually reference my channel on stream, but I can reference, I did a little personal poll, this is what my some friends of mine think. But yeah, this version of Ruby Amethyst, we are utilizing that for Magic Broom and Chernobog's followers, so opting for the draw, just filling out the deck, being nice and consistent, and we are playing 4 copies of the library to combo with that. Now, we recently had Kendall on the channel for an interview, a very renowned and talented Ruby Amethyst player who's been having a lot of success with Ruby Amethyst lately, a list very similar to this. And there are on the 4 Shadowbox followers, 4 Magic Broom, and they're on the 4 Castle and just 2 copies of the Library. And they said the Library is flex, and he's only playing the Library because he wants to play these 1-drops, which I think makes a lot of sense. Like, there's great synergy there. But yeah, opting to put the higher count of the Library over the Queen's Castle, I think is super interesting. I think Queen's Castle is that much better most of the time, in my opinion. But Library can still be super good, and just having 7 locations, which is a lot more than most Ruby Amethyst lists are going to have, it just creates more situations where after a board wipe you can extend with a couple of locations, and if you're mid or winning the race, then they have to start answering these locations. And if you can start putting characters there and drawing extra cards, then it can really start to overwhelm the opponent. So I don't think the high location count is a bad thing by any means. I would always go 4 Queens and 3 Library if I wanted to run 7 locations. But did very well for them. We're seeing traditional bounce package with 2 Crab. We're seeing 3 Medusa, no Tremaines, and no Be King Undisputed. So like those are 2 of the cards that like can really give you the edge, I think, in the Ruby Sapphire matchup and the Sapphire Steel matchup. Not that we're seeing much Sapphire Steel these days. RIP, unfortunately. So yeah, it'd be interesting to know how many of those decks this person fought, but they're not always needed. We are running 4B prep, and again, just that early Flynn Rider can put in so much work. So yeah, super nice looking list. Congratulations to them. Next up, we've got Andrea. Super interesting list here. We are running the 4 Shadowbog 3 Brooms, so just 7 1-drops, 4 Queen's Castle, no copies of the Library. We are running that Flynn Rider, but no Sisu, no Floodborn Sisu, should I say. We are running the 3-drop Emboldened Warrior, which I think is just one, again, I'll say it many times, I think it's one of the best 3-drops in the game, especially for Ruby. So yeah, we have that early aggressive line. We're running 3 Medusa, 2 Tremaine, and 3 Be King Undisputed, so really like hoping to tighten up that Ruby Sapphire matchup. And hey, Be King Undisputed is not as good generally speaking against Emerald Steel, EA Tempo, and SteelSong, just because they tend to go wider more often, and you don't always get your preference target. But there can, of course, be situations where you can, if you've got a rabbit sitting on the board and like a 5-drop, like a Maui and a Medusa, then you can create situations where you go challenge, Be King with Sing Be King with the rabbit, and you can get your target of choice. So it's not that these cards are useless in those matchups, just they're online far less frequently, but great against these decks that just tend to more often than not just put down one big character at a time. No copies of Crab here. Instead, we're seeing 3 copies of the Madam Mim Elephant, which is obviously so bulky. And with that ability of during your turn, you can move 2 damage from him and put them onto an opposing chosen character. That could be great against SteelSong in particular, especially like if they're put into situations where if you've got a 3 or 4 bodies on the board and they're incentivized to like grab your swords or even grab your swords tink, something like that, then quite often this elephant is going to live long enough to get back to your turn, and then this immediate 2 damage on one of their characters, that could be a Cinderella, that could be a Robin Hood, that could really offset them. It could be even just a Daisy Duck, and now you can finish it off with this Madam Mim Elephant if they're exerted, obviously. Yeah, just pointing out like the uses that this can have. We are seeing no snakes though. That is the trade-off that we've made. I just love Snake. I think it opens up more bounce rabbit plays early, like 5, 6, turns 5 and 6. You can, if you don't need to Maui or you don't need to Tremaine / Medusa, then you can sometimes, like, again, unless you need to press the board, then you can get away with just like building your resources. It's another cheaper bouncer to reuse your come into play abilities. Again, we've still got 4 Fox, and again, the 4 cost is not unreasonable to achieve, so you still have access to that bounce. But I just super like Snake. But what we are seeing in that 2-drop slot is 3 copies of Gaston, which I kind of rate, you know. It's going to help you potentially with getting your Flynn Rider online. Obviously, the curve doesn't always feel great because they're both 2 cost, so you'd be going one and then the other one on turn 3. But again, if they're a slower deck, then that's still great. You can do similar with your Fox or with yours, but sometimes you gotta get the Fox down, especially if you miss 1-drop, or you play 1-drop but you're incentivized to trade or something. And obviously Sisu can do the job. But yeah, this is just another cheaper way of doing it. But probably more importantly, it just gives you a better bit of a better early game against those slightly more aggressive decks, against Daisy Ducks, and like, again, EA Tempo that tends to play more characters between turns 1 and 4. This can be one of your nice ways to control the board a little bit, other than just relying on turn 3 Fox, who normally then just trades because of the 3 willpower not being great. Again, Gaston's only got 2, but my point here is you play a 1-drop, you play Gaston on 2, you 3 play the Fox if you need to by bouncing the 1-drop, and it just gives you a bit more early board control. So is it optimal? I don't know, but there are definitely uses here, and it's an addition I do not hate at all. But yeah, overall, deck looking really interesting, so huge congratulations to them. Next up in top 16, we've got Lorenzo. A bit more traditional here. We are seeing 4/4 Brum and Chernabog, no library in here. 2 copies of Tremaine and just 1 copy of Beaking Undisputed, so tightening up that Ruby Sapphire matchup, that Sapphire Steel matchup. We are playing 2 copies of Maleficent Sorceress, which I really like just as another consistency card. We're only playing 3 copies of B Prep, and we're not playing the big Sisu. So we definitely want to be able to find these B Preps at the right time. Again, only running 3 does give you better odds of not drawing into it too early as well, especially against any green decks that are going to play Ursula and really punish you for it. Like those decks, we want to be building to the B prep for the turn that we want it. We don't want it sniped too early. So, along with the draw that this deck already inherently has through the Amethyst package, again, Brums and Chernobogs, this Maleficent just a really nice extra consistency card and can sing friends. So yeah, I've always been a big fan of Maleficent. I haven't played her in this set at all so far. I'm opting for Kuzco's, but yeah, like this has tempted me to actually go back to this. So deck looks really nice. Congratulations to them. And our final Ruby Amethyst list in top 16, we've got Federico, 62 cards. My friend ain't getting milled. Our 1-drops are seeing 4 Olaf and 4 Magic Broom. We're not playing any locations here at all. But yeah, 4 Magic Broom, again, a nice consistency card. And this Olaf, I've been singing the praises of for a while. The 1/3, like, helps you a bit more into SteelSong. And along with Crabs, which we're running 3 copies of, I find that you can get so much use out of an Olaf. We're running 4 copies of Kuzco as well, which I really like just as a nice way that you can go wide early game, and you don't care so much about questing with Kuzco because you're immediately drawing a card, and then quite often that's leaving them exposed for you to take them out with your Fox, your Sisu, whatever it is, and like get a decent enough trade. And it's another consistency card, and again, it's a character that's questing, so you can extend more into opposing B preps, grab your sword, Sisus, and not be as punished for it. So super like that. We are running the 4 Flynn, the 4 Cecil, and 1 copy of that Floodborn, which I was on 2 for a little while, but I do think, even though we've looked at a couple of Ruby Amethyst lists that are running none, I do think access to 1 is really good. It can really help you against the EA Tempo decks, the SteelSong decks, like these lower to the ground decks. Even though we don't have any ways of manipulating strength and getting things into this range, there's already a ton of characters with 2 strength. And again, it's a Floodborn line, quest for 3, she can sing, be prepared, although I'm just noticing we're not running any copies of Be Prepared. That is a decision. We are running 2 copies of Be King Undisputed, no Tremaines, 4 Brawl, 3 Medusa, and we are running a 4/1 Elsa line, which again, I've said in the past, I have been tempted by this obviously 5-drop Elsa. It's growing on me. I think if you're running 4, you don't need 3 Brawl. But again, we're on those B preps. But yeah, this Elsa is pretty cool, but then it gives you access to this Floodborn Elsa, which can just win games out of nowhere and really lock up the opponent. So yeah, I don't agree with not playing B prep at all, personally, but I like everything else here. I like the Kuzcos, I like the high crab count. Again, this Elsa line, again, it's something that I don't think is optimal necessarily, but I am definitely tempted to try it because it sounds like it could be okay. But yeah, did very well, so congratulations to them. Going back to top 4 now, we have the first of 3 SteelSong decks. I haven't actually run the numbers yet, but I do think SteelSong is the most represented top 8 deck of all the decks that I've covered so far this season. And a lot of them looking at largely the same. Quite recently, we saw the Lantern build that DeCandio has repopularized, and we've seen some other players find success with that. This Prince Naveen becoming quite a common 3 to 4 of in many decks. Again, I think DeCandio very much popularising that idea, but only seeing 2 copies here. And something that is different about this list to the majority of SteelSong lists that we've looked at so far this season is this version is playing that 4/4 Queen line, who has not been making her way into a lot of the SteelSong decks that we've been seeing, but I super like her. It's another early shift line for our songs. I wish we were playing at least 1 copy of The World's Greatest Criminal Mind. I think it's super good, even if you're not playing playing the Queen line, but with it, I think that card is super online. We're an aggro version running 4 copies of that really aggressive Daisy Duck. No piglets in here, which is a bit of a surprise, but the Volvo Robin Hood line, 3 Ursula, Vanessa to sing those songs. We've got 2 Benja, which I think is good. Take out those opposing lanterns. The Emerald Chromacon, and then obviously targets that have always been good Benja targets, like Dimes and Fishbone Quills, things like that. 4 copies of this Pete, which I think is like one of the best additions to the SteelSong deck. It was always a deck that just wants to extend, refresh its hand through Whole New World or and Rapunzel, and just keep extending and just make you have the answers. Not to mention they can some versions play bare necessities to snipe those non-characters. This version isn't, but that Pete effect, obviously stopping them from playing actions, can really shut down their removal. There are ways they can get around it with things like Under the Sea and Big Sisu, but if they don't have access to them, then Pete can just win games. So yeah, super good looking list. We are running those 2 Grab Your Swords, which we're not always seeing in SteelSong decks at the moment, and I do think they're important considering EA Tempo and Amber Emerald Under the Sea are doing pretty well, and I think Grab Your Swords can really help you in that matchup, especially in conjunction with the 2 Tinkerbell. So yeah, super nice looking list. I would just like to see a great World's Greatest Criminal Mind in here if you're going to run that Queen line, but did very well. Congratulations to them. Oh yeah, we're not playing Cinderella Ballroom Sensation at all, which is an absolute decision. I think she's one of the best cards in SteelSong, and like again, especially if you also play a couple of copies of that Stout-Hearted, which can be super good. If we were seeing piglets in here, it might make a little bit more sense to me, which is really prioritizing that aggro start. So yeah, definitely shocked to not see Cinderella in here, but nonetheless, congratulations to them. Next up in top 16, we've got Aldo. They are playing those 4 copies of Cinderella Ballroom Sensation to sing our songs. We've got 2 copies of Bare Necessities in here as well to snipe those non-character cards and something else she can sing, and 2 copies of the Stout-Hearted to be a really oppressive mid to late game threat that we can shift onto. 3 copies of Daisy and 3 copies of Piglet. So again, super aggro. We really want to be able to build up 5, 6, 7 ink and have that turn where we sing Whole New World, refresh our hand, and just play a couple of Daisies, a couple of Piglets, and play the P and just lock up the game. We've got 2 Ursa Vanessa to sing songs, 4 of those P, 3 copies of the Prince Naveen to be a great singer and a great way to, on turn 4, immediate along came Zeus, or if you've lost your singers, like if they've been taking out, if they broke your shift line, or they were able to brawl your aerial or something, and you really need to panic Whole New World, then Prince Naveen can get you there. Not playing that Queen line, as I said, most SteelSong decks aren't at the moment, but still opting to play the World's Greatest Criminal Mind. I do think it's important. The Sisu, the Maui, the Tamatoa, these are really prominent targets that... I mean, the Sisu's not bad because it's only got 4 willpower. And again, we've got Strength for a Raging Fire and Zeus. But Tamatoa in particular is so popular and is so hard for this deck to remove. So I do think it's necessary. But yeah, super good looking list. Congratulations to them. And then a bit of a spicy one for our final SteelSong list. In top 16, we're seeing that 4 Ballroom Sensation Cinderella, 4 copies of the Stout-Hearted, but also 4 copies of the 2-cost Knight in Training Cinderella. 2/2 quest for 1. When you play this character, you may draw a card, then choose and discard a card. Yeah, this was seeing play in set 2. Again, it was another shift target for the Cinderella Stout-Hearted, and it's a nice way to fin through your deck and find the pieces you need, especially because we're only playing 3 copies of Whole New World. But yeah, with these 8 shift targets, this Stout-Hearted should be super online, so that's pretty cool. Just a 3/3 Queen line to control the board a bit, be another singer, and we've got 1 copy of World's Greatest Criminal Mind. And we're seeing 4 copies of Doc, who on quest you pay 1 less for the next character you play. So again, we've been talking about the benefits of playing Lantern, which allows you to, this game plan of just, I just want to extend, hopefully lock you down with Pete. I'm playing Whole New World and refreshing my resources, that's how I'm achieving this. And Lantern is a way to just do that more and extend that bit further. And Doc is another way of doing that. The pro being here's another character that is on board questing for 2. The con being here's a character that's on board so that he could be removed far easier than an item like Lantern can. But yeah, like aggressive as heck. I'm also seeing 4 copies of the 4-cost Uninkable Tinkerbell Generous Fairy. 1/4 quest for 1, and she's got a built-in Be Our Guest. On play, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, choose a character to go into your hand, and the rest go to the bottom of your deck in any order, which is going to be a way of finding the aerial when we need it, the big Tink, the big Stout-Hearted. I don't know if it's necessary, to be honest. I think we're already playing a whole new one. We're playing no Rapunzel as well. These are some decisions that have happened. They got to top 16, put 100 plus tournament. So clearly a skilled pilot. And hey, I'm not saying, like, this Doc, Even though I don't think it's, I would play the Lantern, but cool. Like, I could see why it would, like, I could see it doing well. Again, if they can't remove the dock, it's another character that's questing while reducing your character costs. But this Tinkerbell, I mean, hey, it is a shift target for your big Tink. That is a point maker. Let's bear that in mind. Yeah, one got to be a Be Our Guest to find characters as well. I definitely don't think you need the Be Our Guest as well. I mean, I know the small Tink is uninkable and Be Our Guest is inkable. Yeah. Like, certainly interesting. I think the 4/4/4 Cinderella is pretty cool. I think the dock's kind of cool. And yeah, like having these Tinks that you can shift. I mean, you could just play the 3 cost that's inkable is another decision. But of course, this 4 cost immediately, hopefully, finding you another card. It's a +1. Yeah, cool. I like the spice. Interesting to talk about. Huge congratulations to them. Going now to top 8, we have Marco with some Ruby Sapphire control. I do think this is probably best deck in format at the moment. Like, yeah, I do, but I just think Ruby Amethyst has a good matchup into it, so that's why I'm hopeful that it could pull out a dub at the DLCs in Birmingham and or Las Vegas. But yeah, I do think it's the best deck in format. The way it can control the board and can get there so quickly. We've got 2 B prep, we've got 3 Maleficent, and running a 3/4 Sisu line. Obviously, that big Sisu so oppressive, and running 4 ice blocks so we can get more characters into its range. Those ice blocks also really complementing the 2 Brawls and the 3 Mana Medusa, and of course the baby Sisu, the daring visitor. Don't know, mate. Don't ask, and I won't tell. The daring visitor are obviously popping a character of 1 strength. Ice block can get more things into that range, and there's already some good targets like Flavisham and Daisy Ducks and Cinderella, Borum Sensation, things like that. So that's lovely. And then just this clock that this deck can put on the board with I mean, it's dangerous to put down Lucky Dime before your character these days, especially if you're against blue decks because of Kuzco's and Hideaways. So more realistically, you're getting a Tamatoa down, you're hoping that it sticks, and then on the following turn, you are questing, and you're putting down Dime, and having enough ink to exert the Dime to quest even more. And hopefully, it's not unrealistic for you to, along with that Dime, have a Fishbone Quill, and a couple of Porpsicles, or a Porpsicle and an Ice Block, and then Tamatoa's questing for 5, the Dime is exerting to give you another 5, and that's just such an incredible clock, which is why it's so important for all decks to be able to answer. If your deck cannot answer this Tamatoa, or you're not really confident that you are winning the game before it's even going to be an issue, and if you think that's the case, then perhaps think again, because the decks that can just ramp so quickly, especially one like this that's running Tipo and 3 1 jump ahead. So we've got that ramp from 2, and then turn 3 we can play the Fishbone if we want, or if sometimes we need to play down the Grand Martala or the Flavisham, and then we're singing 1 jump ahead with Tipo. This deck just gets there so quickly, and then it can settle the board. Like, if you didn't press the board, great, you're not putting too much pressure on them, and then they don't need to panic respond so much. If you did play hugely to the board, if they just get 1 B prep, then or a big Sisu, does that completely offset you? Obviously this deck's weakness is like card count. It's like very much living or dying by Flavisham, so you always want to be able to like answer this Flavisham. You don't want this one Flavisham getting 2 procs. Never. They're going to get the +2 when they put down 1. You want to be able to answer this straight away. But even if you do, they can just find another one. Like, the Flavisham just gives such good draw, and the 4 copies of Vision of the Future is just such a good addition to this deck. The 5-card dig to find the piece you need. Flavisham if you need resources, or your removal of choice, or perhaps your dimes. So yeah, I think this deck is super good. We're not playing anything like, you're seeing some of these decks running something like Gaston as the 2-drop to be a bit of a... Because, like, this deck can be super weak to Flynn, but it doesn't have to be. Like, if we got the Ice Block down turn 1, then at least by turn 3, we're playing Sisu. That can sometimes not feel like the best curve. If you went turn 1 Ice Block and then turn 2 Tipo or 1 jump ahead, then obviously on your turn 3 you've got 4 ink to play with. But if you play the Sisu 3 cost and it pops the Flynn, and then maybe you put down another Ice Block, or you play a Porpsicle, so you can still get full bang for your buck. So this deck can absolutely answer the Flynn, but it is probably one of the biggest weaknesses. But yeah, I think this deck just looks so strong. It's going to take a lot to bring this down. It really is. So yeah, huge congratulations to Marco on top 8. Next up in top 8, also on Ruby Sapphire, we've got Luca. We're not seeing a shift target for the big Sisu. We are seeing 4 copies, so we're living on dying by paying 8 ink for that. So we have less answers to opposing Flynn Riders. Of course we can, as long as we ramped on 2. Then we can get down Grandma Tala to hopefully offset it a little bit. But if they're then able to get down Sisu or Fox, then we can be a little bit weak to it. Seeing 1 copy of Bell, which could be, like, again, another, like, similar to Tampa, it's another character that just offers great quest pressure, and getting to 10 ink is not unrealistic at all. Seeing 2 B Prep, 3 Brawl, 2 Medusa, 3 Maleficent as our removal, those 4 Vision of the Future, 2-1 jump to go with the 4 T-Po. And we are seeing that 1 copy of Mufasa, Ruler of Pride Rock, 8 cost uninkable, 4/9 quest for 3. On play, exert all your ink, and then 2 of them are randomly added to your hand. And on quest, you can ready all your ink. So this can create really oppressive turns where if the Mufasa survives the turn, then you could use up all your, maybe you're playing dime and then you're exerting the dime. And then you quest with Mufasa, you get that 9 ink back, and then you're using that to play more items, how far all goes, you're doing whatever it is you need to do. So this Mufasa has fit exactly kind of where I imagined it was. Like, and if you go back and watch my early review of Sapphire, like, the proof's in the pudding. I was very much like, I started my review like, I don't know, I feel like this is a bit overrated and it's going to be okay. You'll see 1 or 2 obs, but it's not by any means like going to be an assured thing. And I definitely thought it was a bit overrated. And it has sort of fit into that box of like, hey, it's still a good card. You are going to see it every now and then, but it's not this game-changing card that I think a lot of people set it out to be. But the 1 copy I think is perfectly fine. Item lineup looking pretty standard, but except for the 2 copies of Ruby Chromacon. We've seen them before, but far rarer. 1 cost inkable item, chosen character, exert, chosen character gets +1 strength this turn. It's another item to synergize with the item synergy in general, and it can fix math. For instance, Maui is one-shotting a castle is perhaps the most notable interaction. So yeah, 2 copies of How Far I'll Go as well, to be fair, is kind of rarer these days. You're not always seeing this, but I super like it, especially if you're playing Grandma Talas. So yeah, super good looking list. Congratulations to them. And our final Ruby Sapphire list, in top 16, we've got Alessandro. They are playing that 3-4 Sisu line. No Gastons or anything, but again, Sisu can do the job against Flynn Rider as long as we've got the ice block. Generally, I think this is the mold that most Ruby Sapphire decks will take for the DLCs. Although I think some people may opt for the hideaways, which, notable by their absence, we haven't seen any today. But yeah, super good looking list. Congratulations to them. And now for the spice you've been waiting for. In top 16, we've got Oscar with some Ruby Amber Mufasa. The big bad Mufasa, when banished, look at the top card of your deck. If it's a character card, you can play it for free. It enters play exerted. So that's going to hopefully cheat out this big Sisu. Running 1 copy of Chernobog. This deck goes through a lot of characters, so that should be super online. And we're seeing 2 copies of the new Wreck-It Ralph. 7 cost uninkable, 6/7 quest for 2. On play, return a character card from your discard to your hand. If that card is a princess character card, gain 2 lore. So just replenishing our Mufasas or any of these big beat sticks. We've got Rapunzel's here for draw. Super Goose, plenty here that we would like to recycle. And again, if it's a princess, of which the options are Rapunzel or the 4-3 Mulan line, which I think is enough targets. I do think probably just one of these is enough, especially because like they don't really, like, this and Chernobog kind of conflict with each other. I still like the Wreck-It Ralph, but I'd probably stick to the 1. But yeah, I like the addition. Running 2 copies of Hydra, 6 cost uninkable, 6/5 quest for 2. Whenever Hydra takes damage, deal that much damage to chosen opposing character. In the steel matchup, this can be super frustrating to them, not letting them play their grab your swords. Well, it's not that it doesn't let them play them, but it can really like upset, like it can offset what they're trying to do. And of course, just from challenges, you could potentially pop off another target. So yeah, super like Hydra. We've got 1 Tremaine, 2 Medusa. As I alluded to, we are running a 4-3 Mulan line, which is super good. The 1 drop having entering play with 2 damage, so synergizes with the Rapunzel along with the Mother Gothel, which is our primary draw engine. We are running 4 copies of Surfer Stitch. That lets you draw 2 cards if you've got at least 2 other characters in play. So those are our main ways to draw. But yeah, access to this Floodborn Mulan can shut down decks, like against EA decks, against SteelSong decks. If they don't respect that you could have this Floodborn Mulan, like, this could absolutely shut down game plans. And yeah, I actually think this big Mulan is a little underrated at the moment. Maybe that's my hot take of the video. 4 Maui for board control. We've got 4 Daisy Duck to be another aggro character, and 3 Super Goof, just another nice way to close the game with that rush, and when he challenges you gain 2 lore. And then running 4 copies of Doc, which can allow for a turn 4 5-drop, such as Mufasa or Maui, and 2 copies of Gaston, which can allow for a turn 4 6-drop. To be fair, the turn 4 5-drop could also be shifting the Mulan. But yeah, opens up the 6 drops, and even later on in the game just allows you to just extend a little bit more, and you don't need to necessarily ink as high if you're utilizing these. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Mufasa, and like there's always some Mufasa believers that like this deck is always represented at big events, not necessarily in huge numbers, but no more often than not we're talking about them near the top tables. And yeah, it can be just super aggressive. It's really like having so many mid-range characters, and like it's quite consistent a lot of the time, and just the right hits off of Mufasa can be game-changing. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the deck. Huge congratulations to Oscar. And the final list of the day, we have another Amber Ruby Mufasa list. This one is 61 cards, and it's nearly exactly the same as the previous version, but here we are seeing 4 copies of the Super Goof, so we're playing an extra one of them. Only 1 copy of Hydra, so we have cut one of them. And our 61st card here is 1 copy of Scar Vicious Cheetah, who I'm actually really rating at the moment. 7 cost uninkable, 6/5 quest for 2, rush, and whenever he banishes a character in a challenge, you can re-ready him, but you can't quest for the rest of the turn. This card can obviously be a really nice half-board clear. If you've got a Mulan down, then they have to kind of respect it and like not necessarily turn sideways for fear of the Floodborn. But if they're able to take out this Mulan and then feel like they're safe to do a big quest because they think that this is your only way of like dealing with mass characters, then this Scar can be a really nice surprise. 1 card in this deck, I forgot to mention it in the last one, our only non-character card of choice. 3 copies of Teeth and Ambitions, which obviously synergizes with the Daisy Duck early game because she'll survive it and allows us to answer to opposing aggro decks if we're seeing things like Merfolk, and you're not seeing a lot of aggro. I don't know how worth it this necessarily is. It can help against Diablo, obviously, which this deck doesn't have a lot of other answers for, at least in the early game. And I suppose the Flynn Rider as well. We can answer the Flynn. We've got our Emboldened Warrior Sisu, and even our Mother Gothel can do the job. But it's another answer to them. I think probably Diablo more than anything is probably the answer for. Because if they do it early, then waiting to... Well, I suppose you can play Medusa early through Gaston and Doc. Yeah, I don't know necessarily if I agree with the Teeth and Ambitions, but everything else looking real nice. So huge congratulations to them. And that's it for the top 16 deck lists for the Lorcana League Italia, 108 players. And yeah, as I said at the beginning, a lot of the usual suspects, but nice to see all of those decks being represented. And yeah, like a nice little juicy bit of Mufasa. And yeah, that Ruby Amethyst list in particular, playing the 2-drop Gaston, I think is super interesting. But overall, I still think we're looking at a really healthy meta. The next video will be taking a look at the event in Belgium and hopefully also the London event, if I'm able to get the deck list. Hopefully, I'm assuming Spess is going to put them up, and even if not, I'm probably end up on ink decks at some point. But yeah, I'm excited for the DLC. Again, I will be there casting. If you're going to be there in Birmingham, let me know. And if you do see me and you feel and you'd like to say hello, please do. I would be honoured and delighted. But that's going to be it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show support, and we'll see you soon.